It does. If that's actually on live or not. Yeah, we are live. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the channel Subject Access, and we've got here. Sorry, how do you say your name again properly? And then we'll say Godfrey, but how do you say it properly, just so we know?
Godefroy.
Godefroy, like cold, Godefroy. Okay.
Yeah, in England, people used to call me Gogo. So.
Okay, and it's kind of unfortunate. It's a weird thing historically that I contacted quite a few people in France the last couple of days, and a lot of people said to me, "Well, if you try and ask people in France to who are trade unionists or activists or know what's going on, most people can't speak English." And I think there is some truth to that, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
So you used to live in England, so you've had you'll be fine with all of this. I've been looking at the news with more and more pleasure to see the revolt in France. Do you want to just give me an idea about, firstly, tell the audience what's going on? What's this about?
Okay. Well, this is what's happening right now. It's the result of a very long process that started on the 10th of January, which is the date when the government of Elizabeth Borne, which is the prime minister under Macron, started to kind of submit the pension reform to the parliament. And this has been sort of I mean, there's a lot of things to say about that,
Okay,
details, but I'm just going to do a quick so this been followed up by various sort of debate in parliament. Then he went to the Senate, where he's been discussed there as well. Then last week on Wednesday, the way things work in France is when you have a new law which is passed, which is first discussed through the parliament, which is la Chambre des députés.
Yeah.
Then it's sent to the Senate, and it get discussed there and amended there again.
Yeah.
Then it gets sent back to the Chamber of Deputies, and then there he get through his final vote. So last week, when he was due to come back to his final vote, and when the President Macron and the government realized they're not going to have enough vote to pass the law, they decide to implement what we call the Article 49.3 of the Constitution. Which this article allowed the government to pass a law without the consent of the Parliament. This article is followed by what we call a motion censure, which is like a vote of no confidence, which is then triggered, and this is going to happen on Monday. I mean,
and what, just quickly, what percentage of the Parliament has to vote in favor of no confidence?
This is a absolute majority, which is, I think, is 2/3, sorry, of the chamber. So
right, okay,
it's 287 votes, which is not a majority. The majority is something like 247 or something like that.
Right.
So this is much more difficult to obtain. This is the 100th times in the Fifth Republic history that the Article 49.3 has been used.
Right.
And never before a motion censure, a vote of no confidence, has been successful. Never.
Right. So it's extremely unlikely to be successful. Yeah.
It's extremely unlikely, but the nature of the constitution of the the nature of the spread of power in parliament could make it possible.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what it needs to be understand that for the Macron, when he won the election last year, didn't get a full majority. So in France, we have a parliamentarian system which is basically gives a lot of power to the president of France.
Yeah.
This is how thing works. And very often the parliamentarians are just there to just vote why you tell them to vote.
Yeah.
This time around, the balance of power were a bit more spread between roughly 3/3. So you got la NUPES, which is the left part, so that encompass Mélenchon party, la France Insoumise,
Yeah.
encompass the socialists
Yeah.
and the ecologists.
Yeah.
Then you've got Macron party, Renaissance, which also have other party around.
Yeah.
And then you've got a right wing, which is Les Républicains and the Front National.
Yeah.
And so Macron tried to create a coalition with the Les Républicains, which is a right wing party, ex-Gaullist, if you want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just happened that he didn't get a coalition. He didn't get enough votes, if you want, to pass the. That's the other funny. I mean, then we can discuss the democratic ambiguity around the whole thing. If you want to, And so what happened when he tried to pass the 49? So that was when he passed the law through what we call Article 49.3.
Yeah.
Then this turned what was a sort of regular sort of state of the art kind of like all in the book protest into a revolt. This is the turning point, if you want, from something that was more or less contained by the union were doing that thing and trying to France, like in England, union are highly institutionalized now, so they do things by the book, if you want. And so now from Thursday, these are turned into something a bit wilder, I think.
Yeah. So the union, let me just for the audience here, the unions in France are politically based. They're not industrially based, isn't it?
No, they are industrially based. Well, yeah, they are politically based. Yeah, you can in many industry you're gonna have several unions.
So the unions compete with each other.
Yeah.
To gain members and support.
Yeah.
Sometimes by proposing more radical proposals. So sometimes I remember, I think it was 86 or 87. I was in France for some protests then, and sometimes like Force Ouvrière would make more radical demands, a Catholic union, than the Communist Union,
Yeah, in France, you can divide the union into two camps, if you want. You have what we call the progressive union, the progressists, which are the one that always try to find compromise with the government.
Yeah.
Which is CFDT. FO is now become more of a progressist union, over the years.
Okay. CFDT was aligned with the Socialist Party, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. And then you have La CGT, which is traditionally a very radical union. They wanted, they were working, I mean, in the history, in the past time, they were working toward revolution, but now they also kind of put water in the wine, as we say in France.
Yeah.
But the way very often the way government plays with the union is they try to wedge between unions. So they trying to find an agreement with la CFDT,
right?
And that kind of wedge into the union of the union. He put a wedge into that, and that often helps them to get law through. Yeah. This time they didn't do that. This time all the unions were pretty solid together, and
so presumably this is because there is a massive anger against Macron in the widest layers of the population. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the very interesting thing, I think, to me, and why Macron didn't manage to get a majority to vote the law, is because the protests were taken in many parts of the country, many small towns. So I come from a rural area, and there's two towns where I live, where I used to go protest, I used to go one, according to where my friends go, or and one was Figeac and one was Rodez, which is they're about an hour drive apart,
Okay.
And I think this is the consequences from the Yellow Vest protest. There's been some sort of radicalization, more spread into the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so what this has created, it has created a situation where the MPs were directly confronted in their constitution to protest there. They were not the protests were not only sort of contained in Paris or
Paris, right? Okay.
or into the big cities like Toulouse
Okay.
or Lyon or Bordeaux.
So in a small town like your nearest town, was it an impressive turnout for such a town?
Yeah, I mean, like Figeac, is about 10,000 people.
Okay.
There was 5,000 protesters there.
Oof. Right.
Rodez, Rodez is a Hy-Vee town, but in the middle of a very rural, sort of highly dynamic rural area. But in Rodez there was 25,000 people there.
Right.
I went there on Wednesday with some friends, and we teamed up with the La Confédération Paysanne, which is the left-wing farmer union.
Okay.
And we actually went on and take over the. We tried to burst into the prefecture, trying to
like the town council, yeah.
No, it's not the town council. In France, the way power is organized, you've got the president, and then in each department you've got a préfet.
Okay.
And the préfet is a bit like
prefecture.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like a ombudsman or something like that. I think
mayor. Maybe a mayor, is it?
No, mayor. No, the préfet is in charge of the police forces, if you want.
Okay.
In the department, and
okay. So was there a clash? Was there a physical?
Yeah, there was a clash. Yeah. They went there. The farmer turned up with their tractors, and we actually assaulted the prefecture, and they sprayed the police with some sort of paint. They had on the tractor. They had some sort of equipment to spray the paint, and then the police kind of replied to that with tear gas and trying to push us away. But the kind of protest lasted for about a couple of hours.
So they were riot police.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were riot police,
and in enough numbers to deal with the people, or were they basically backing off?
They were trying to hold the door, basically. They were not trying to push us away. They were trying to hold the door. I mean, it's a very small door. I mean, I can send you videos of the thing if you want to have a look at it.
Okay. Yeah.
We had the guys from Enedis, which is the French electrical company, the network guys.
Yeah.
And they literally cut the power in the center of town.
Okay.
We were same thing before we went to protest. We kind of did a bit of a thing, and they just literally pull all the cables out.
So when I've been before to protest in France, people created something called maybe inter syndicat or some sort of like collective organization that emerged from the strikes themselves. Is such a thing emerging now?
Yeah, he's been emerging before. He was that. I mean, L'Intersyndical has been running the show from the beginning.
Okay. So what is that? Is that kind of a democratically elected forum of the people? Is it, or what is it?
To be honest, I don't really know. I'm not unionized myself, so I don't really know how this works in the details. So I can't really answer you on that. What I can tell you is the syndicate, the union. Sorry, I used the French term there, but they be sort of more or less running the show until now. I think what's going to happen now is going to see that the base of the union, the grassroots, are kind of starting to take over. The union always played this thing where they try to restrain their grassroots and trying to kind of present sort of a face to government of negotiations. So you come and talk to us, and we make sure our guys don't go over.
Yeah.
But the strategy kind of paid off in a way that the government didn't get a vote. This is what you need to understand as well. It's like there's no a mandate for that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So I saw in the news here, I think it was Financial Times today, they're saying 82% of the population are opposed to the pension reform.
yeah,
Do you think that's roughly right?
yeah. We said 90% of the working force are opposed to that, and
Right.
about 2/3 of the population are against it. You know, I mean, when I went to the protest, there was a lot of pensioners there. You know,
So
yeah.
we're talking about a sort of, I mean, Macron seems to think he's Bonaparte, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's is a very problematic, and that I mean, to be honest, now what we call that is now we are in full blown regime crisis.
Yeah.
Because this is not my analysis. This is an analysis that I got from reading an article in the Public Senate, which is a website from the Senate. They're actually quite good because they've got very interesting analysts that come there, and the guys published a paper saying, which you know, the view is that Macron mandate is more or less finished now.
Yeah.
Not that he's going to go out of power, but he's going to have no maneuvering leverage, if you want. He cannot maneuver anything now anymore for the next 4 years because no.
Well, I mean, in 1968, when the movement reached its peak, general strikes, the occupation of the factories, and so on, and the unions were ignored. Basically, they tried to make a deal and were ignored. Then de Gaulle tried to mobilize his forces. You saying he cannot do that? He's not in a position to do that? He's weaker?
No, because he's not in a position to do that because de Gaulle forces, he's the parliamentarian, were majority in the country.
Yeah.
Macron hasn't got that now, and now no one politically with any sense will want to get associated with them.
Right.
What people says in the news is that, yeah, the 49.3 article is part of the constitution, so we can use it.
Yeah.
But what you need to understand, which probably you don't get being in the UK, is the 2 months, nearly 3 months of debate that we had in the news, where people actually looked into the reform. And basically, what happened is that the government presented the reform one day, and then the next day, when they realized that people will debunk what they were trying to say, he will present it another way. Say, oh well, So they first say we need to do that reform because we need to reform the pension system. Well, it turns out this is not the case now. That they implement the reform not because the pension system is at risk, because it's not at risk. It's been sort of proven time and time again by various economists, by various specialists that came on various TV program and sort of news channel program. So now Macron said they do it because they want to make sure that markets not going to downgrade France.
Well, I mean that's probably true that he now sees it and presents it as a battle for the interests of capital. I mean, they must smash the workers.
It is. I mean, what it is they're trying to do savings. They're trying to do saving fast. Because we are into the European Union. The European Union impose a level of deficit which is 3% of GDP.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID, because of the various measures they put in COVID, they spend a lot of money, and they trying to recover that money.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
What they've been doing as well is they've been cutting down cotisation. We call tax. It's not taxes. It's cotisation for businesses. They've been cutting that. They've been cutting down taxes for the super rich.
Yeah.
So what they've been doing for the last few years is that they've been cutting tax over the place, and they have actually the pension system in France, and this is the official numbers. It's not. Is 350 billion euro of income every year.
Yeah.
The problem that they're saying that they want to address is over 12 billion. So it's 2 billion a year over 10 years. So it's peanuts. It's actually, I mean, if you want to over 350 billion sort of program, you have to find 12 billion. If you want to do it, you can do it. You know what I mean? It's not like you don't have to. And to do that, so but let's admit that. Let's admit they have to find 12 billion. The way the pension system works in France is not a private pension system, is a public pension system, which is well, there's a whole history of that. We're not going to go into that because it's very long, I think.
Okay, we don't need you.
But
what I'm interested in now, and probably what people are interested in, is how do the protests, I mean, apart from where you were, you must have looked at the rest of the country. Most people in Britain don't speak French, don't follow the French news and so on. So what's been going on? It seems like there's a wave of strikes that are escalating.
Now it's escalating
and all the rest of it. Give us a sense of what the mood is and what the mood amongst the youth is.
Well, the mood are. I think the youth we haven't seen them that much, but now they're starting to pick up. I mean, there's some universities that are being blocked. You know, in Paris, the people that collect bins, the bin collectors, basically are on strike. So now you got something like 10,000 tons of rubbish in the Paris streets. They're on strike in several cities. All the refineries are on strike now, and some refineries are starting to shut down. Which this is more serious, even because you can have a refinery on strike. You know, people, no petrol is coming in or out, but the thing is still running. But now they're shutting them down, which this is a very long process. It takes about a week, and then it takes another week to turn it back on again.
Right.
So they're going for the on hold, I think. Farmers have been striking much, apart from the left-wing farmers. I mean, where I am, I've seen them. But I think now what's going to happen is, as I say, the thing's going to be quite a bit wilder, I think, than what we usually for the last few months. But that's a big thing, is repression is going up a big notch as well. The yellow vest, I mean, the government was able to implement a form of repression that was never before in the country.
Many people were killed, isn't it? And many people lost their arms.
Not killed, but people got blinded, people got lose their hand. They use flashballs, which is like those rubber bullets.
Right.
And the forces are they're super brutal. They're super brutal. I mean, you had a taste, and you had the football game in the Champions League final last year. This turned into a disaster for the French Home Secretary, the equivalent of in France. They are extremely brutal. They are, and so people are scared. People are scared for their physical integrity. If you just try, because a lot of people are quite peaceful. They want to block the country, but they're quite peaceful. They want to do it peacefully. And if you try to go to a protest and suddenly you get tear gassed, you get shot with rubber bullets for no reason, for just the only reason is for you to be there, then a lot of people are kind of thinking twice about going to protest. That's what happened. This is how they break. This is how they broke the yellow vest.
Sure.
Sorry.
But on the other side, it's also got the opposite effect. If people are going to something they think is peaceful and everyone supports, and then suddenly they're attacked brutally, often that can cause, if you like, an explosion. So where do you think we're at?
This is what happened. But I mean, in Paris for now, they for example, they restrain protests in the Place de la Concorde, which is, I don't understand the geographic of Paris.
I've been, Mm-hmm.
But La Place de la Concorde is this big square on one side of the river, and then on the other side you've got the Assemblée, which is the parliament.
Yeah.
So people have been protesting there for the last few years now, since Thursday, and they make it illegal not to protest there. The regime is basically the thing is the outcome is either Macron backs things down and scrap the law.
Yeah, he's finished then, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, in either case, you know, in either case he's finished. But in one case he can sort of blood, if you want. In the other case, the regime can become very, very authoritarian, because the Fifth Republic, the regime of the Republic, can give the president this capacity of being extremely authoritarian.
Yeah. I mean, you have this as your advantage, because the previous times that I went to France during big protests, I think it was in 85, 86 and 95, 96. And both of them were in the middle of winter. Whereas now you're coming into the spring. It's quite a good time to protest, you know.
I mean, the thing is, the advantage of things now, I think, because the protest is going to go nationwide, because when they in Paris or around various towns like Toulouse, or the big town, is easy to concentrate the police forces there. If you have something like nationwide, like you know, to be honest, in France, the Yellow Vest protest, they achieved in 3 weeks with 300,000 people what no one achieved over 40 years, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And they did that because they couldn't grasp them, you know. They were all over the country. They were just happening on roundabouts, and you know, and that's why they had to slam them with heavy repression. I mean, even in England, even when I was in England, I went to protest I've never seen police forces behaving like they do in France.
Yeah.
Even when you send, even the pictures I've seen during the, because I wasn't there, but is during the minor strikes, you know, when you got guys on horses running into, you know, I mean, when you go to Paris or to a place of Paris,
they're proper paramilitary. It's not
exactly. I mean, the way they gear, you know, the way they gear and everything.
They're Robocops,
you know, But this is not to say the whole thing is not. What's going to happen? There's the one precedent for that 1995, where that was for a previous pension reform.
Yeah.
That goes scrapped in the end, and that goes scrapped. Why? Because there was protest, but there was 3 weeks of country down from strikes.
Yeah.
There was no one train, no one tube, no one plane, no going. And this what happened is basically is workers shut the country down. Then the capital, what we call in France, you know, the capitalist, you know, go and see Macron and say, drop it. We need to get back to work now.
Yeah.
Because this is costing so much money that we can't not. And this is the only way we can do it. This is the only way, because Macron is basically is in the hand of the capitalists, you know, like all the presidents in France, but him more than all the others.
Yeah, he's one of the prime
and
movers
this is the way this can be done
nowadays. Yeah, him. A lot of people in England.
The guy's a banker.
Jacinda Ardern and that bloody Trudeau, and all cut from the same cloth, look exactly the same, behave the same, think the same, act the same.
I mean, what you need to understand is that the way Macron, maybe that's interesting to the audience. I mean, if it's not, you just cut me and I stop. But is the way Macron was selected to run as president, and the way he was to go to power. You know, the thing that what happened is there was a right-wing contender that was called François Fillon, and just before the election in 2017, he got caught in a scandal of employing his wife salary from it was like a full employment thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of brought him down. So what happened is there was a quick move to find a contender, because he was the contender of the capitalist, if you want. He was the contender of the business elite of the country, and it was a quick move to if you want to pump up Macron into the new contender for the presidential. So they literally created this party.
Yeah, out of nothing. Yeah.
Out of nothing in a few months.
Yeah.
You know, and then they put it into the presidency, and then with all, you know, he had all the money behind, so the communication was what it was, and then he was elected president. You know. So basically, he's not even a traditional politician that has been around for 20 years, 30 years, like Sarkozy, like Chirac, like Hollande. So, you know,
he's a new puppet.
He's a puppet. He's a puppet. You know, it's the same like Putin was put in place by the oligarch at the end of Boris Yeltsin. Macron was put in place by the French oligarchs.
Yeah. Okay. So one other aspect I thought about was looking back from the times when I remember back in the, as I said, late mid 80s and the 90s. It was true on both of those occasions that when the protests began and escalated to a sufficient scale in France, they spread to Spain and Italy, and also to some degree to Portugal. You know, they have that Latin connection going there. So obviously within the European Union, they'll also be scared that this contagion can take place. Very difficult for the contagion to spread from France to Germany or to France to England, but somehow it seems to reach into Spain and so on. So perhaps that's another calculation that the ruling classes in Europe will be making.
I don't think it's going to spread into Spain, because Spain is into a different mood. You know, it has a different government now. He has a left-wing government.
They all seem to be on the attack, though.
Well, in Spain, you mean?
I mean, in every country, they seem to be attacking living standards, you know.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah, definitely they are. I mean, the whole thing is if you want, the whole thing is, you know, what's in France is a similar history, if you want, than in the UK after the war. You know, all the social progress that we had was set in 1946. You know, and since then they've been trying to completely discontract that.
Yeah.
To a point now where they're trying to attack the pension reform. I mean, even in France, you know, the hospital, they've been cutting beds. I mean, this, you know, and also this is in that protest, it's not just about the pension, you know, it's about all sorts of things. It's about the arrogance of the president. It's about the living cost, because we have a living cost crisis as well. Not as bad as you have in the UK, but we have one here as well.
Yeah. So what sort of how does that manifest itself in terms of rising prices and this sort of thing?
Well, basically, food prices are rising. You know, the government is giving energy sort of compensation. You know, they send the energy, you know, sort of money so you can pay your.
We get that as well. So it's again,
but that's what, you know,
thing.
They all do that because they don't want people to turn the place upside down. You know, it's like they're on the fine line. I mean, what I think and what a lot of people think, what a lot of commentators think is amidst all these problems, if you want, all these, Macron is just went for that. You know, he's actually a very bad calculation from his side. You know, and
probably
he went for that, and that kind of become the catalyst, if you want, the thing that started at the beginning. The protests were pretty tame, but you know, as they went on and on and on, and now from Thursday, the whole thing is kind of getting out of hand. You know.
Right. Well, let's hope so. Okay. A final word. Having lived in Britain, a message to the Brits. What could we learn?
I don't know. It's like I don't. You know, I think it needs to be more. If anything, I think. I mean, I've been following the British news quite a lot actually, because my my partner is British, and we,
Okay.
especially the whole thing with the various prime minister you had over the last year, and and I think for me, I would say, without trying to give lessons, because we have no lesson to give,
of course,
to anyone, but it's more just maybe take a bit of the fighting spirit of the French protest, and just basically, I can see through that in the French news. It's like the elite are trying to establish the dialogue within a very framed context. They don't want anyone to go out of the frame, in terms of what you can ask, how you can ask it.
Yeah.
And this is being done in France, the same in England. And I think what needs to be done, and I think lots of people understand that in France, is you need to go out of that frame. You need to get out of the context and out of the frame, and avoid violence. That's the only thing, but it's very difficult because they are extremely violent in front of us. The triggering the Article 49.3 is an extreme violence. Is something. It's like a gun to the French people's heads. Like, I'm gonna pass this through no matter what you said.
Yeah.
And so the only thing is I can say, there should be a solidarity between, because French people, British people, we are all the same. We all in the same struggle.
Yeah.
We are facing the same issue in our own respective ways, of course, because we all have different history. But it's very the same. People in England, I can see, I've been living in England for long enough, and they're struggling for the same thing, to have a decent life, a decent healthcare, decent education, to have decent work. And the other thing, I don't know if it's the same in England, but after COVID as well, COVID has changed a lot of things for a lot of people in France. Is people are starting to say, we don't want to get paid more. We want to have a better job, better life, we don't want to work so much. We want to do jobs that are meaningful, or jobs, if they're not meaningful, we don't want them to take over our life as they used to be. We don't want to work 40 hours, 45, 50 hours a week anymore. We want to have time to do our things as well. And this is a big change already in the French society. And I think it's the same in England, So.
Okay, thanks very much. That's about 40 minutes. We finally managed to get the thing off the air. I'm sure people will be interested to hear what's happened, and let's get back in touch again soon. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
See you later. Salut.
Bye. Ciao.